Welcome to Faith Talk with Val
and Sony.
We are a Bible-based podcast where we talk about real life, real struggles, and how faith makes all the difference.
And so I will start us off today just by sharing something two songs that have been stuck on my mind. And I just want to encourage you guys to go listen to this. I'm not like advertising anyone, but these songs have literally been stuck on my mind. And this morning I went to church and they actually played it as well. One of them. So they're both by Elevation Worship. So if any of you are looking for some encouragement, the first one is Trust in God. And my favorite phrase that keeps resonating from that one is, I sought the Lord and he heard and he answered. And that just brings me so much peace. It's like, he's listening. I'm good. Like, it's all good. Mm-hmm. And then the other one, also Elevation Worship, this one is called God, I'm Just Grateful. And the line from that one that stands out and just it brings me joy is like, who am I that you keep me at your side? And it just makes me think about it. Like, he created the sun and the moon and the water and, everything. And who am I? All of these marvelous things that he's created. Who am I that like he keeps me on his side? I just think those songs are beautiful. It's just so uplifting. So anyways, go listen to that. I just wanted to share that. If you haven't heard them recently, they're great songs. They're not new, but they
just
uplifting.
Like change the environment. Yeah. I love it.
I love it. Which brings me to my next point, what we're discussing today. So today we're going into the topic of standing firm on God's promises. And God's already made promises, and the Bible verses that we're dissecting today are pretty cool. And I think the further we went into them, like we were just in awe once you look at, I keep saying this in multiple episodes, like the intricacy that God put into everything that he created. It blows my mind. But anyway, Val's going to start us off with the first verse.
Like, it's actually an entire book. It's the book of Psalms. Mm-hmm. So the reason we were kind of talking about this one is because I had mentioned to Sony that I was speaking to another friend and she was feeling kind of discouraged. And she was kind of like listing a lot of things in her life, at work, in her personal life, just like a lot of things that were just compounding, and they were making her feel like her life was like just closing in on her to a certain extent. And just like listening to her, I even felt like the depth of that. Like, I was like, as you're speaking, I literally feel my life closing in on me, because it was just so heavy. And it was like a lot of her fears were like very just like anyone can relate to. And I was like praying to God at the same time. I'm like, I want to help her. I want to uplift her, but there's no advice I can give her that is going to fix the situation or make the situation better. I was like, God, like, help me.
Yeah.
And the book of Psalms, book 1, so chapter 1 came to mind. And basically I encouraged her to like read this chapter morning and night. And in the chapter, you'll actually even say, like, meditate on God's word morning and night. And I was like, there's a lot of promises in that book that when you feel like you're in a place of desperation, that you're just like, help, you kind of have to say, like, call God out on the promises he already wrote about that are in the Bible that he has promised you, and just say, like, I need you. I may not have the time, the energy to pray, to do all these things, but I'm going to dedicate and read this one chapter every morning and every night and wait for you to show up because you promised you would. And I'm going to read it for us just so you guys can see how like powerful this is. So Psalms chapter 1. Oh, the joys of those who do not follow the advice of the wicked, or stand around with sinners, or join in with mockers. But they that delight in the law of the Lord, meditating on it day and night. Promise. That's kind of like an order. God is like, meditate on the word day and night. They are like trees planted along the riverbank. What? trees planted along the riverbank, that means that we will never thirst for water. We're always going to grow. We have a continuous stream. And then it says, bearing fruit each season, promise, their leaves never wither. That sounds so nice to me. It continues on to say, but not the wicked. They are like worthless chaff scattered by the wind. They will be condemned at the time of judgment. Sinners will have no place among the godly. For the Lord watches over the path of the godly. I really like this because I was basically telling her, like, the path you walk, regardless of the outcome, God personally is looking out for that path. That gives you a tremendous amount of peace knowing that whatever happens, I'm not just walking this road that I created. I'm not walking this road that someone else created for me. I am walking a road that God Himself is carefully looking after, making sure I'm on the path. And then it continues on to say, but the path of the wicked leads to destruction. But I felt like just reading this, I encouraged my friend to like read this, but I was doing the same thing and just like reading this in the morning. And then I would find like little moments in my day where little things would just like discourage me or shift my perspective. But then instantly I would remember things like, I will bear fruit in each season.
Yeah.
I was like, no, my leaves will never wither. That's a promise. And then I would go more throughout my day and then something would happen that I'm just like thinking like hopeless, whatever. And then it's like God watches after the path that I walk. And I'm like, no, I'm being taken care of, cared for. So I think there is value, like when you're feeling in a funk, to, even if you don't have the energy, even if it doesn't mean anything to you, even if you're just like, I'm just doing it because I'm wanting God to show up, there is power in God's word and reading it out loud. There's a verse that says, my word does not return void.
Yeah.
Just saying that morning and night, just, God, I'm waiting for you to show up. Just like watch God show up for your life and change your mind, change your perspective.
And He knows like your innermost thoughts and how you're feeling. So even if you don't have the words, He still knows. He'll meet you where you are.
Yeah. Anyways, I thought I would share because it's like just like reframing.
Yeah. That is like the perfect transition to the next two verses that you'll read for us right now. These next verses are not ignoring the fact that we go through struggles. Stuff happens in life and everyone's going through something. Go ahead and read the verses.
We're going to read two verses. If you guys are opening up your Bibles, it's going to be Joel 2:25 and then Joel chapter 1, verse 4. So starting with Joel 2:25, and I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten, the cankerworm, the caterpillar, and the palmer worm, my great army which I sent among you. And then the second verse here is Joel 1, verse 4. That which the palmer worm has left, the locust will eat. And that which the locust has left, the cankerworm will eat. And that which the cankerworm has left, the caterpillar will eat.
So give us a little bit of background first before we dive into that Joel 2:25 verse.
Yes. When God talks about the locusts, the cankerworms, the caterpillars, and the palmer worms in Joel 2:25, He's not being like abstract or like, God, why are you adding these additional bugs? These are all insects to this verse. He's actually talking about the agriculture of that time. So in that time, these were real insects that caused real destruction to the crops, food supply, and survival itself. So each of these insects, they didn't just destroy randomly. They destroyed in stages. One ate the leaves, another the fruit, another the stem, and another whatever was left underground from the crops. By the end, the land looked alive, but it could no longer produce any kind of fruit. So when God says, I will restore the years that the locust has eaten, he's referring to the multiple different stages that a person had gone through with their crops. And it parallels to what he tells us, like the multiple different stages in your life that you have gone through. Because a lot of times when we go through hard things, it's not just like a one time it happened. It built up to this. Initially it was this, and then my confidence was taken, and then this, and then this, and then you end up in a certain position. And God's like, I'm not just going to fix the outcome. I'm not just going to restore that. I'm going to go back to the very root of where this started and redeem it all.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
That's so beautiful.
So let's talk about each stage of that.
Yes.
And we'll start with the palmer worm. So the palmer worm cuts and attacks the beginning structure of a plant, and it leaves the plant alive but crippled. So growth is sabotaged at the start, and the plant survives, but it can't flourish. So how this looks in real life. So imagine a person whose foundation is attacked, not their existence. So to give you an example, a child grows up, and let's say this child is in constant criticism or neglect. So they survive, but their confidence is stripped. So as an adult, they're alive, capable, even gifted, but they're hesitant. They're always second guessing. Maybe they're afraid to move upward or take chances. So let's think about how this reflects Satan's strategy. So Satan doesn't aim to destroy us outright. He aims to cripple our purpose because, again, his goal is for God's purpose to not come to fruition, right? Mm-hmm. And so he distorts our faith. He stunts it. He exhausts it. He makes growth painful. And then as believers, we might start to feel behind in life or emotionally fragile, unable to support others, for instance. And that's the palmer worm attack. So then that brings us to the locust attack. So the locust, think of sustenance, mass consumption. The swarming phase everyone in agriculture fears because it devours anything visible and green. So the effect is photosynthesis stops, so the plant is exposed and weakened. And just to give you more insight, photosynthesis is basically the process in which a plant turns light into food or energy, for example. And this made me pause earlier. Val mentioned that that's a great parallel to how God is light for us, right? Yeah. And how his word is uplifting for us. So when our confidence is stricken, so going back to the palmer worm, if we're made to believe that God isn't coming through, if our confidence in that fact is destroyed or impacted, here we are now thinking well, what's the point? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the locust, the effect in life, so think that Satan doesn't just weaken you, he's aiming to erase evidence of blessing. You feel empty and broken, or for instance, if you go through public failures or you're exposed, betrayed, or humiliated, just losses in life that feel shameful. So that's Satan inserting shame into our purpose and delaying the promises that God has for us. It's I've been doing all of the right things, but nothing's growing. I've been putting in the work, but nothing's developing. So Satan's goal here is that barrenness looks permanent.
So basically what it comes down to, it sounds like, is the locust effect. Satan's goal is to convince you God has left and make everything that looks barren in your life, make you believe that's permanent when it's temporary.
Yeah.
When it's a season of your life. The important thing to know during the locust effect is that it is deception. It is a dry time that you will go through, that a lot of people go through, but the important thing to know is it is a tactic Satan uses.
He's stalling, basically. The erosion of hope. There you go.
Yeah.
That's
exactly
what it is.
That.
Okay. And then, so that brings us to the cankerworm. So the cankerworm strips and licks away what remains. So it consumes remaining leaf fragments, soft growth, tender buds, and the effect is no regeneration is possible. So whatever might have come back is removed by the cankerworm.
I think earlier you had mentioned that this is one of the most deceitful stages.
Yeah. So the cankerworm doesn't arrive loud. It eats quietly, gradually from the edges inward. So what the cankerworm means biblically and agriculturally. They chew young leaves and tender shoots. They attack new growth first. They leave the trunk standing but prevent maturity. And they often go unnoticed until growth fails repeatedly. So nothing looks destroyed, it's just underdeveloped. And the human parallel is when Satan doesn't attack your past, he targets your future. So, for example, a person starts again, like a new relationship or a new calling or a discipline or just a new season with God, but it keeps stalling, regressing. You never quite take root. And every restart feels like it dies young. So you don't know if anything will ever last. And again, that starts building confusion. It starts building disillusionment, right? So it's, again, the slow erosion of hope. So it's like a constant discouragement and just repeated disappointments. And it's ultimately deception. So his strategy is if he can't destroy your faith and structure, he'll delay the destiny. So again, the goal isn't like death, it's perpetual immaturity. So like a believer who never matures, doesn't reproduce, they don't mentor, they don't build a legacy. So why does God mention the cankerworm specifically? And it's because God sees invisible loss. So loss that others might dismiss, God says, I know what kept you from your future. And that's why his promise is to restore the years, not just moments, or events or delayed growth. He's restoring the years. And then finally, that brings us to the caterpillar. So the caterpillar finishes, it eats whatever fruit was left, and it leaves nothing to harvest. Even if the plant lives, the year is lost. The plant looks mostly intact, but its direction has been altered. And then when we're thinking like, how does this tie in? So Satan attacks timing and trajectory. So it interrupts seasons. So again, let's say a person is finally gaining momentum or stepping into clarity or about to move forward, then something cuts in, like sudden loss or distraction or crisis or old habits or, misstep at a vulnerable moment. And the other thing I'm thinking of is like falling into familiar.
Yeah.
And so life continues, but the season changes prematurely. So you were just getting there, but then there's that early discouragement. The caterpillar attacks early growth, and it looks like calling is questioned before it's rooted, criticism before confidence forms, responsibility before maturity. It's just the perspective change that alters the direction. And it ultimately makes you aim lower, move slower, choose a safer path than the destiny that God had ultimately created for you. And again, think Satan's goal in the locust attack is if he can't stop you forever, he'll try to stop you early through discouragement, hesitation, second guessing, shortening your vision. So to tie that all together, God is saying, I know every phase of your loss. And he's not saying he'll restore a specific relationship or your finances or opportunities or possessions. He's saying he's restoring time. And that's a currency that only God can offer.
He's giving you a currency only he can offer, because the devil, he can give you money, he can give you opportunities, he can bring a new relationship in your life, but something that he will never be able to offer is time, because only God holds the keys to life and death, and only he can add or take away from the days that you will live on this earth. So I think that's super important. In that verse, Joel 2:25, and I'll read it again. It says, "And I will restore to you the years the locust has eaten." God emphasized time, a currency that is very valuable. And I think that's super important because sometimes we're thinking materialistic. Sometimes we're thinking you're going to put this person back in my life, or you're going to take away this person in my life, or you're going to give me that opportunity again. And God's like, you know what? I'm offering you something better, something that only I can give you, and that is time. And that's so beautiful because now you have time with wisdom. And this time, you not only have wisdom, but you have wisdom with God. Because you're like, God, the first time you weren't in the equation. This next time you offered me time to do it over, to do it different, to do it new. I have a better understanding. I have better clarity over how to do this. And you're right by my side.
Yeah.
Throughout these different stages that you're going through, that you go through when you're being attacked, God doesn't say you should have fought harder here. He says, I know what ate your years. I know how that delayed you from this person that you are eventually going to become. And that's okay because I'm the restorer of time and I'm going to restore it all, which I love that.
It brings me back to Job, and I love the book of Job. But it brings me back to God restored tenfold. And it wasn't necessarily
Tenfold.
Yeah. And it wasn't necessarily like everything he once envisioned, but like God gave him more.
Yes.
God gave him better. God gave him
a restoration he could never imagine.
Exactly.
And I think that's super important to put because sometimes when we talk about restoration, we start to picture how God could potentially,
how it should look, how we want it to look,
and how it could potentially look too. And we start creating scenarios in our mind, and that's all awesome. But in reality, God says that you won't know how he's going to restore it. So instead of trying to like picture different futures, different outcomes on how he's going to do it, just say, God, am I preparing to be ready for when you do it?
Love
because
that.
There's no point in knowing how you're going to do it if when I get there, I'm not ready.
Not ready to steward it.
I'm not ready to receive it. I receive it and I'm a bad steward of it and that it crashes and burns. Yeah. We just want to make sure we're ready we're the person that we need to be able to receive that.
Yeah. And I just think it's so beautiful that whenever you're feeling discouraged or have doubt, you can always open up the Bible and find these promises in there. When we dove into the locust, like honestly, we thought it was the one thing, like it's this one insect, it's a grasshopper. No. And then like when you put it that way, it's like the different phases of this one insect and how it impacts and how Satan simulates the exact same thing in our lives. It's so powerful. And I just want to reiterate another verse that I think is equally beautiful, and this is Amos 9, verses 13 through 15. And it says, "The days are coming, declares the Lord, when the reaper will be overtaken by the plowman, and the planter by the one treading grapes. New wine will drip from the mountains and flow from all the hills, and I will bring my people Israel back from exile. They will rebuild the ruined cities and live in them. They will plant vineyards and drink their wine. They will make gardens and eat their fruit. I will plant Israel in their own land, never again to be uprooted from the land I have given them, says the Lord your God." And when I read that, I just think, get excited. God is about to overwhelm you with blessings.
Oh, I love that.
Expect it. Like, just expect it, right?
I love that, especially because it parallels the Psalms 1, where it says, they will be like planted trees along the riverbed, bearing fruit in each season.
Yeah.
So I think in this episode, we just wanted everyone to remember that there's beautiful promises that God has for every single one of us, and they are not of scarcity.
Yeah.
They are not of shame. They are not of hiding. They are ones of like showing your light and bringing joy to others and bringing joy to yourself and spreading love and knowing that you will be bearing fruit in each season of your life.
And even through the locust attacks.
Even through the locust attacks. If anything, the Joel 2:25 verse, God's saying, like, I know what you have been through, and I'm going to restore that. When God says restoration, it's like you can't even imagine the future that's in store for you, because it will be my doing, not your doing, and it's going to be amazing and perfect. And there's no point in trying to top what it is. He already has it planned out for you. It's already there, so you don't even have to worry about it.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's such a great and encouraging message, and we hope that that's blessed all of you. And we also encourage you to feel free to reach us at connect@faithtalkpodcast.com if there's any subjects you'd like us to go over.
And this was Faith Talk with Val
and Sony.